Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, and welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and it is great to be with you today. I want to welcome you to our webinar, and I want to dive right in because today is kind of twofold as far as how you'll be able to benefit in your practice. The twofold being, number one, we're going to continue with the application or the interviewing process. But number two, how many of you want more new patients? I think all of our hands should have gone up because we need to take care of as many people as we can and bring them the benefits of chiropractic care. And so what I want to dive into today is the twofold aspect of our topic, which is the application meeting. This is week 2 of module 1. And the application meeting has these two benefits that can really help your practice. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in and kick this off. And let me just share my screen. There we go. And as always, as we go through our topic today, please chime in the chat or the questions, type it in. If there's any questions you have, I want to make sure we don't leave any questions unanswered. And that way you get everything you need to run a successful practice. So, so with that, and actually, I think there's a little interference in the internet for just a minute here. So let me just, let's see. Emily, I see you on the call. Why don't you raise your hand if you can hear me and see me, just so I make sure that, there we go. Okay, thanks, Emily. Just wanted to double check. It's great to have you on the call today. I'm going to go ahead and lower that down for you. And, but as always, for everybody, if there's any questions you have, just chime in, let me know how I can help you. So let's go ahead and go through this part of it, because as I said, this is week 2, which means that your sequence is ongoing, right? So the interviewing process can be a little daunting, especially when if you've had somebody leave your team and maybe even suddenly, over a 2-week notice or maybe a little longer, but either way, if you've had someone leave your team that's been a valuable team player, you're in a pinch, right? So I want to streamline this process for you so that every step of the way you can implement this and have it be pretty turnkey, okay? Now, as I said, we want to make this a streamlined process. Imagine that you're trying to fill that position quickly and you start interviewing people for that position. Our tendency would be to do a few interviews, be totally short-staffed, overworked, behind schedule, and then say, this one's good enough. Why don't I just hire that one? I've interviewed 6, 8 people. This one seems like the best of the bunch. Let's just go with it. As opposed to, how would it be if you could interview a bunch of people at one time and have that be effective enough to where that first impression that's made through that group interview, through that one-time event, if you will, could be effective enough to where that first impression could be the springboard into your hiring process, right? We can immediately just go through a lot of people and find the diamonds in the rough. And that's what I want to emphasize on this section right here, because I've seen too many doctors shortchange themselves or fast track this and lose the benefit of having a really good pool of applicants and choosing the best of the best, okay? So we're going to talk about how to pre-qualify our applicants. And then I also want to add this bonus today, which is going to be how to add some new patients to the mix too, because we can all have more new patients. Okay, so here's how it works. All the applicants attend one meeting. Now, I want to just back up for a minute, because when we talked last week and I gave you the script, which is what you're going to say to get them to the meeting, right? So we're just going to frame this real quickly. We put out our ads everywhere. We blanketed our community with ads, whether it's internet or locally. And from there, we got a ton of resumes, lots and lots of resumes. Now, to screen these, we went through a screening process, and we actually scheduled those individuals that passed the screening tests for this meeting. And what we said to them in the scheduling process was, I'm going to schedule you for an interview. Now, I know there's a little bit of a bait and switch here, but it's with good intentions. So it's okay. It's an ethical bribe. That's what I talk about with my kids. But It's a streamlined way to go because when we schedule this, we're actually scheduling it for, quote, an interview appointment. Now that's important to write down if you're not familiar with that. So write that down. We're going to interview them for an appointment, or sorry, we're going to schedule them for an interview appointment. Okay, let's go back. Keep that in mind because they each have an appointment at a set time to come for an interview. Now, if we go back to our screen, it'll make a little more sense if you're not familiar with it, because here all the applicants attend one meeting. In other words, everybody that was scheduled for that interview appointment was scheduled at the same time to come. Now, what that means is that some people are going to walk in and they're going to look around the room and they're going to see other people there, and they might be turned off by that. Or what we want is we want someone who has the tenacity to see the forest, well, not lose sight of the forest for the trees, right? We want them to see the benefit here and look around and say, wow, look at all these people. I'm good enough to get this job. Or I'm even better than all these people and I should get this job over these other people, right? We want that kind of tenacity to shine through when somebody sees that. Now, to put that into the practice aspect, why am I sharing that with you? Well, what you don't want is you don't want a CA running your front desk at your most busy time, whatever that is. Most of your patients are there, it's a busy time, and you don't want them to shy away from either confrontation or be overwhelmed in the busyness of it, right? We want someone that's comfortable working under some type of pressure. Okay, some can actually perform well under pressure. And we want that. Why? Because anytime we're running a successful chiropractic practice, there's patients whose emotions are involved, right? They're in a lot of pain. They're frustrated by their insurance. It's been going on too long. They had a fight last night with their spouse because they didn't go to work. They're losing income. Whatever it is, there are times where emotions flare, and you need someone who can remain calm under pressure, right? And that's an important aspect of what we're looking for in terms of this person that we're interviewing. Okay, so just to emphasize that, you want to make sure everyone's scheduled at one time. I don't usually tell them there's going to be a bunch of people in a room at one time. If they ask, I'll just say, oh, we're going to be interviewing others in that time frame too, so you might see some other people here. Fine. So it's okay to not reveal that ahead of time. And it's also okay to answer that question if it does come up. Okay. So they're all going to attend one meeting. So they all come in at one time. Now, what happens when they come in? And this, I'm going to just share this with you, because when you have these applicants coming to your office at one time, and let me just sidebar for a moment. It could be 10 people. It could, whoa. Oh, that snuck up on me. I'm sorry. I coughed right into the mic. Let me just grab a drink of water. It could be 10 people. It could be 100 people. Either way, you want to have an organized flow when people come in. So you'll need a CA at the front desk as your greeter. So when they come in, someone to say, hi, what's your name? My name's Mary. Well, great. We've been expecting you. I'm happy to see you here. Here's a name tag. Well, I'm sorry. And then your CA is going to write their name on a name tag. Okay. So, hi, Mary. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for being on time. And then writes the name on the name tag and gives it to the person to put on their shirt. Now, why does your CA write it? Because you may get writing on there that's quite illegible. And we want to be able to read this because we're going to be getting first impression notes on everybody that attends the meeting. So the person comes in, they're met by the greeter, they get a name tag. The greeter writes the name on the name tag. Just the first name is fine in nice big letters. And then let them know they can go ahead and have a seat. And wait, they don't have their resume, I'm sorry, their application yet. They're just going to have a seat and they're going to just let the ambiance of your office kind of soak in, right? They're going to look around. Hopefully you've been following our marketing steps and our new patient protocols so that in your reception, there are testimonials of other patients. There's chiropractic information that's informative and interesting. I like testimonials. Those are great because when patients look around the room, they're going to see, whoa, there's these stories and these are amazing stories. We're also want to put up our diplomas, right? So that it shows some authority on the subject of healthcare. Anyway, so they're going to soak that in and they're going to also see other people coming in at the same time. and going through the same process. Hi, can I, welcome to our office. Can I please have your first name? And then write it on the name tag. Go ahead and have a seat. We'll be right with you. And let the room kind of fill up. Now, I like to do these meetings on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night after work hours. So we like to do them actually on Tuesdays mainly. That's primarily our day. And we start them at 6:15 because we finish with patients at 6. So 6:15 sharp is when the meeting is supposed to start. And we'll usually give them about 5 minutes to trickle in. And at 6:35, I'm on the floor. Okay, so let's go back to our slides and we'll follow that flow. Okay, so when I come out, once we're going to start, the PDC, and for those of you who are new, that's the primary doctor of chiropractic or the practice owner. I come out and I describe the available position, right? So what does this position look like? And I like to hold up the flyer, the one that they're all familiar with and the one that that got them interested in the position in the first place. So I'll hold that flyer up and I just go through some of the high points. You know, this is here's the flyer that many of you saw. This is our position that's available. It's a full-time career opportunity. There's no experience necessary. We do provide health insurance benefits. We provide paid vacations. It's a very secure position. And I go through that from the flyer. Next up, I want to share some details about my office. Now, you can sell the sizzle on the steak for this. Okay, really make it amazing. Make it wow. Make it extraordinary, right? That way, the people sitting in the audience are going to be, first of all, glad that they came. And second of all, they're going to be excited for those who are tenacious, like I talked about. Those who are tenacious, they're going to be excited about the opportunity to get this position, right? So they're going to put their best foot forward and go accordingly, which I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. Meanwhile, and I want to emphasize this, while they're sitting down, after the name tag is provided, the check-in CA, the greeter, makes one little notation about their first impression of that person. Okay, now it doesn't have to be super detailed, but there's certain criteria that we're looking for. How was their eye contact? Did they smile? Were they professional? Were they polite? Were they, how did they carry their posture? Were they on time? Were they late? Were they really early, right? So all of those things are factored in. Now, that can be done very quickly and discreetly in the form of just simply a smiley face, right? If the person that checks them in, when they write the name tag, I'm sorry, there's one other piece to this. When they write the name tag, they're going to write down their name on a piece of paper. This is the greeter CA. And those names are just going to be written down. Can I please have your name? And then they write it on a piece of paper. And then they write it on a name tag, give them the name tag. And then as the person's putting the name tag on and going and sitting down, the CA writes a little notation. What's my first impression of this person? Is it thumbs up, thumbs down, no comment? What was the first impression in that moment? And then you go from there, okay? Another criteria you might look at, is this person really chatty? Now, these aren't all deal breakers, but if you have somebody that walks in and walks up to the counter and has people lining up behind them and has no awareness of that and continues to talk and ask questions about the position or about the office or share a funny story or whatever it is, that's somebody who may not be aware of their surroundings when things get busy, right? So just a note, it might factor into that first impression that the CA makes while the person is sitting down. So that's that first part of this application meeting. So then I get up and I want to describe the position and I go through the flyer. And then I talk about how this is a very special career opportunity, right? This is an opportunity that to be involved in healthcare that is different, most likely, than anything you've ever experienced before. Why? And then you talk about chiropractic. So chiropractic is different than mainstream medicine, right? And this, you might want to write this down for those of you, I know a couple of you have been through this before. Actually, many of you have seen me teach this before, but if you haven't seen me teach this before, this would be a good time for you to write things down. So, and this is a big opener because it gets the attention of people who are familiar with mainstream medicine. When do we enter the mainstream medicine, or I'm sorry, let me back up. When do we enter healthcare? Is it when we're healthy or when we're sick? Or better yet, when do most people seek out healthcare? Is it when we're healthy or when we're sick? And let your audience answer that question, right? Because that question, when it's answered, most of the time, people are going to say, you seek out healthcare when you're sick, right? And it gives you a chance to reply to that as the person who's leading this meeting to say, absolutely, I agree with you. And that's unfortunate because what does that mean? That means it's not really a healthcare system. A system whereby we seek out health when we don't have it is not a healthcare system. That's a sick care system. And mainstream medicine is very good at that, right? It saves lives every day. We are very thankful that we have a functioning sick care model that can save us when our health is very seriously threatened. But when it comes to healthcare, that's whose responsibility? Is it pharma's responsibility to make you healthy? And you let your audience answer. No, it's not. Whose responsibility is it to really take to manage and monitor healthcare? And let your audience answer. Well, it's ours individually, right? That's whose responsibility is to manage or be in control of our healthcare. And that's exactly right. So what if I could show you tonight, and this is part of your presentation, what if I could show you tonight the secret tool to be in control of your healthcare, thereby avoiding the sick care system? Would you be interested? Yes, I would. Okay, great. So since we've established that, just know that is a huge part of chiropractic. If you haven't experienced chiropractic before, this is a huge part of what we do. Now, how many of you have been to a chiropractor before? And let them raise their hands. Many of them have, right? What did you go to a chiropractor for? Or what do most people go to a chiropractor for? And let your audience answer. They're probably going to say back pain, neck pain, some kind of ache or pain, right? And that's fine because we're the best at back pain, right? I mean, we're way better than an opioid prescription. But so that is fine. We're hands down the best at approaching healthcare from the standpoint of alleviating back pain. But what you're going to learn tonight is it goes way beyond that. And that's why there's such a huge job satisfaction that comes with being a chiropractor, or better, as in our case, next best position is being a chiropractic assistant, because you get to be involved in helping people manage their own healthcare responsibly and achieving levels that they previously thought was not even possible. We're going to show you how to do that as part of our team. And it's very rewarding. The fulfillment that we have is incredible. As a matter of fact, the CAs that work with me, some have been with me for years, right? And then this goes into our next part, which, let me share my screen. So I'm just kind of giving you samples and ideas that you can use when you're talking to your audience and giving this short little presentation, right? Now it's back to the screen here. So just know that this presentation literally is like 5 minutes long. Okay. You're not going to talk for 20 minutes. Certainly not going to talk for half an hour. It's like 5 minutes. And so as a bullet point, you want to talk about the flyer and sell the sizzle on the steak. And then you want to talk about healthcare as it relates to sick care, or better yet, chiropractic care. Then the next step is we're going to have our CAs get involved. And we're going to tie this in with testimonials, right? Because from a or from an applicant's perspective, what do they want to hear? They want to hear, okay, doctor, you can get up there and tell me how great you are or whatever. That's fine. But I'm here for a job and I want to know how good of a job this is. Well, who better to share how good of a job this is than the people who actually work in the job day to day, right? So if you have CAs who've been with you for many years, then this is a great opportunity for them to stand up and say, let me tell you why I love my job, right? So back to the screen here, right? So PDC explains chiropractic to the applicants, chiropractic philosophy. The body heals itself from above down, inside out. It is a self-healing body that you have. I mean, it can heal itself of cancer. Cancer cells can be broken down and reorganized and recycled into a brand new healthy cell so that you can remain functional and healthy. Isn't that amazing? It's the miracle of the body. So talk about chiropractic philosophy from the standpoint of the body's ability to heal itself and to maintain optimum health when it's allowed to function without interference, right? That's what we learned in chiropractic school. And we can share this with our audience through the perspective of being a CA and working in an office that provides scientific, cutting-edge healthcare, real healthcare, right? How to stay healthy, not just how to avoid being sick, and then compare that with the medical model. So we talked about that here: medical healthcare, sick care, and then testimonials and chiropractic miracles. So one of the things that I like to do when my CAs get up and give a story, to share a story, and if you have one CA or two CAs, or more CAs, usually I'll have two CAs. And first of all, your CAs may not be super comfortable with getting up in front of a large audience and giving a presentation, right? So first and foremost, as part of this application process, it might be a good idea to ask your applicant during the interview process, would you be comfortable with public speaking? Might be a good question to ask, right? Because if they say absolutely no, there's no way, never will I do that. That might be a deal breaker if down the road you would like that person to give us a testimonial when you're hiring, or you might want them to teach an orientation class or a spinal care class, or they might need to deliver a report of findings to a family of patients all at the same time, right? So just keep that in mind. That might be a question that you ask during the interview process. But to stay on point, testimonials, chiropractic miracles, have your team involved. And when we had our last application meeting, I have a CA who's been with me for, I think she's 16 years now. Brenda, 16 years we've worked together. So she has lots of great stories, yet she doesn't share them all. She keeps it condensed, but she can give just a great recap of some miracle stories that we've had from her perspective. Then we'll have, and also just how she loves her job. She's been doing this for a long time. She's a chiropractic assistant veteran, right? Now, on the flip side, it's nice to have a newer CA get up and share their story. How was it like when you started? How was the workload, right? Was it overwhelming? Did you feel stressed? Was it organized? How well were you trained? How fast did you get up to speed? See, these kinds of stories, when you're sharing this from the perspective of a CA to an audience, these are the things that bring out the tenacity that I was talking about earlier. Someone may have walked in, saw the big group, said, whoa, this is crazy. I'm feeling overwhelmed, a little nervous. This is scary, but I'm going to go through with it. And then hears those stories and says, wow, this is what I want to be involved in. This is like a career opportunity. I want to get involved in this. And so suddenly they're starting to get really interested and say, out of all these people that are here, I want this job. This is the job that I want. And they'll make sure that they're engaged in a way that you get to see the best side of this person shine through when you do this process. Okay. So that's that at that point, that's the you explain that approach or that comparison to mainstream medicine. Then my CAs get up and provide testimonials. Sorry, I skipped over that, but that's the next on the slide. And then the last part of this little presentation, and this is before we get to them, they haven't even filled out an application yet, right? They're just sitting listening to you. One thing I'll just add, you might, while they're in the lobby waiting for you to get started for that few minutes, you might have a brochure or a short paper or something that describes some of the things that you do in your office. It might just be a brochure about subluxations. It might be a brochure about chiropractic. Or if you have something that's a little more custom, it might be like a bio of the doctor and the practice, not like overdoing it, but just, a professional background, some of the interests that the doctor has, some of the community involvement that the office has, excuse me. Those would all be good things to share. If you have that in a document that they can read while they're waiting in the lobby, perfect. Or some of our members have put up a movie on a screen that has text. I don't know what it's called, but I'm drawing a blank on it. Subtitles. Thank you. There we go. Someone just typed that in. Subtitles on there, right? So you might have a silent movie that's playing with healthcare and subtitles that introduces chiropractic or introduces testimonials of your office. Whatever it is, gives something where it's not just this silent room where everyone's feeling stressed and tense and doesn't know what's going on. It might be nice to have them either reading something or watching something and just waiting for everything to get going, and then it starts. Okay, then we go through the process that I've shown. So they're all going to come in at one time, describe the position, explain chiropractic, CA testimonials, or doctors. If it's just you, I see Dr. Glenn on there. You may do the testimonials. You might just give a comparison between medical care and chiropractic care and say, let me give you some examples. Here's a patient who was on prescription drugs for 10 years with no improvement. Right? Would you be frustrated if your body wasn't getting any better after 10 years of taking prescription drugs that were promised to fix this problem? Probably. And yet they came in and saw us, and in 1 week, totally cured and resolved, right? That's the beauty of chiropractic. So whether that comes through a CA or through the doctor, that's what I meant by providing testimonials and sharing those stories. The last part is to offer complimentary consultations. And this is why when we started, I was saying that there's two benefits to this section, right? The one is to screen a lot of people at one time to find your diamond in the rough. The second is to bring in new patients. So how would that work? I would be speaking to my audience. I go through the flow that I just shared. And then to wrap up at the end, I would say, I want to just let you know that, and we almost never do this. In fact, we only do this when we have a position that's available because our office is very busy, right? We have plenty of new patients all the time. So, and on a side note, not part of the script, but doctors, if you've been with me with DC trainings, you should have the same problem. I'm telling you, we have more new patients than we can handle. I mean, literally. So follow our marketing in module 6. If you're not having enough new patients, bring in the module 6 information and you'll have plenty of new patients. Okay, anyways, back to my script. So we have lots of new patients that come in and achieve these amazing results that I was telling you about. So as tonight, as a thank you for coming and to show our appreciation for you being here, we have a coupon that we're going to provide for each one of you. And the coupon is good for an initial consultation. It's good for an examination, a complete examination, and it's good for a report of findings. Now, let me add to that, because if you were to go see a doctor anywhere and go through that process in a doctor's office, how much would they charge you for that? Ask your audience that, and they'll throw out some numbers. It might be, $300, $500. That's right. It'd be hundreds of dollars. Now, I'll add to it. We even have x-ray technology. So if you need x-rays to find out how long this health problem's been going on, we have those on site and we can provide those, and that will be included in this coupon that I'm telling you about. So it's all complimentary for being here as a guest tonight, as an applicant, and showing your interest in this position. We almost never have positions come available because we have longevity with our employees. So this is a great opportunity for you to experience our office and come in, especially if you've had a health problem. If you've had a health problem and it's not resolving, please come see us. We would love to find a cure for you and have it go away and potentially never come back. Wouldn't that be great? So as a thank you for coming tonight, on your way out, we're gonna pass out the application. And on your way out, just let our front desk know that you would like to take advantage of that opportunity, and they'll schedule you for an appointment. Done. Okay. So now let me just again frame this, and I'm going to put the screen back up because this is the part where finally we're actually going to pass out the application. Okay. So in that flow, right, they come in, they're greeted by your check-in CA who writes a first impression. They go and they have a seat and they wait. And while they're waiting, they're reading a pamphlet, they're watching a movie, whatever it is, just for a couple minutes to help them get comfortable in the office. Then the doctor comes out, gives this presentation, which literally is like 5 or 10 minutes. Don't go longer than 10 minutes, but it's generally like 5 minutes, just enough to kind of wet the whistle, show a great first impression, and tell some stories about the chiropractic and the testimonial. So not long. Then you're done, doctor, and your CAs pass out the applications. Now, I want to just back up a little bit because to introduce the applications, doctors, that's going to be you. What you want to let them know is we're going to pass out the applications in a moment, and you're going to need to fill those out. Now, there's 2 sides to it. So make sure you fill out the front and the back side. If you brought your resume with you tonight and your references are on there, you don't need to add references on your application. But if you don't have that with you, please include your references because we will be contacting both your references and your past employment for a reference check. But don't leave anything blank on the application. If it doesn't pertain to you, just put NA so at least we know you saw it. So it's really important because, and then let me back up to the full screen because there's many of you applying for this position. We may not have time to bring you back for another interview later because there's so many of you. So how you fill out this application is critically important as to whether or not you get scheduled for a one-on-one in-person interview as the next step. So make sure you fill those out. And right now, my team's going to pass them out. Okay. So let me just pause there because if you have any questions, this is to our group of doctors, DC Trainings members, welcome. Not to my applicant audience. if you have any questions so far in this process, please let me know. You can type them into the chat. Let me know you have those questions. I want to make sure that you get any questions you have answered in this process, because the flow of this just goes step by step. And when you do it correctly, it's beautiful. It's like, if you've ever been to a concert with an orchestra, or, a lot of instruments playing at the same time, and all the timing is just right. And they just produce this masterpiece of music that's so beautiful to your ears. Well, when you do this correctly, you will produce excellent A player CAs, which are the ones who are going to drive your practice. I mean, doctors, I know we do too, but I tell you, there's no way I could do what I do without the help of an incredible team. So how well you follow this process is really important. Okay. So we're going to, so at that moment in the process, my CAs pass out the applications, or I do, but everybody gets it at the same time. They're not filling it out during the talk. It's all at once. Why do we do that? The reason why we do that is because I want to know how long it takes them to fill it out. Now, I set the stage by saying it's very important that you fill this out entirely. Don't leave anything blank. If it doesn't apply, put NA. And I want to make sure that you answer the whole thing, right? Well, what you'll notice as you review these applications is there's distinct characteristics that will tell you if this person is worthy of coming back for a follow-up interview. It's their attention to detail. It's their completeness. It's the legibility of their writing. And if you want a little secret on that, the front of the resume is where you'll see the best writing. On the back of the resume is where you'll see the writing that you'll get every day in practice for the next 17 years, which can be great, right? Or it could be kind of sloppy. And what'll happen, why are we having them all fill this out at one time? For somebody who's tenacious and meticulous and has attention for detail, the continuity of their writing will carry from the front of the page all the way to the back of the page, even when they see people starting to get up and leave, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to hire the person that fills it out the fastest, and you don't necessarily have to can or not hire the person who filled it out the slowest. Those aren't deal breakers, but it's nice to know, right? I'll share a little story with you because I had an application meeting recently where I had there was a woman who filled out her resume or her application, sorry, and was the last one to turn it in, the very last one. And we were actually, everyone was done and we were waiting, and she didn't seem to mind one bit. She was still filling that out and took her time and turned it in. And I thought, my gosh, she's really putting a lot of time into this. Okay, that's fine. I respect that. And when she turned it in and, we said, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. We'll take this and you're welcome to leave. So she left. I looked at the resume and I could barely read the writing on the whole thing, front and back. So not only was her writing illegible, which can really be tough when you're trying to discern like what's a patient's chief complaint, what did they come in with, what was their history, right? That can be very difficult. But also the length of time that it took for someone to be that complete and yet produce something that I couldn't even read for the most part. So the other part is I'm sorry. So let me just recap that, because what will happen is as people start to get up and leave, the people who are not doing it so quickly, and again, that's not a deal breaker, but they'll start to scramble, right? They'll see people leaving and say, oh my gosh, maybe I'm too slow. I better just wrap this up. And that's what I want to, I need to fill this out quick and turn it in. That's the writing that we want to see at the end of the day, right? That's the writing that if somebody's with a new patient and they're taking a consultation, or if somebody's on the phone, a CA's on the phone, and at the same time there's a patient coming in and they're needing a message taken for the doctor or something. So there's that multitasking aspect that we want to make sure produces legible writing and attention to detail and completeness of duties all in the same context. And these are the perfect ways to test that out, okay? Now, in a perfect scenario, you're going to have some of your applicants finish really fast, maybe their writing's really sloppy or something, or they left stuff incomplete. You probably want to know about that too, right? They didn't fill things out, even though they were instructed to. You're going to have a larger body of people kind of in the middle, and then you're going to have some that are on the tail end that are quite slow. Maybe they also left them some things incomplete. So you're going to be able to screen out the ones from this process that are no longer candidates to be continuing the interview process. But in the middle, you're going to have a group of people who fill it out entirely. They have neatness and clarity of writing. They put everything on there. They presented well. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, they presented well and everything went fine. That's who we're looking for. Now, I want to add one more step to that screening process, right? We had the greeter CA, excuse me, who made a first impression note for each person. And it could be 100 people or it could be 5 people, whatever it is, get that first impression note. There's a second first impression note that's going to come from each of you while they're filling out the resumes or the applications. So we pass them all out. They're filling them out. Things are going to get kind of quiet for about 15 minutes or so. Maybe longer for some, maybe shorter for others, but about 15 minutes is generally the time frame that it takes to fill this out. So during that time, everybody on your team should be looking around the room and picking out who they like or who they didn't like and making a note on that individual. And they're doing it discreetly. They're not being obvious about it, but behind the scenes in a discreet way, everybody on your team needs to write something down for the people that stood out, whether it was positive or not so positive, but they need to make that note so that at the end of that meeting, when people have now turned in their resumes, sorry, I keep saying resumes, but turn in their applications. Some will turn in resumes too, but they're turned in their applications. You want to have some notes from everybody on your team of who stood out. Okay. Here's another note. This is a key topic. As people are turning in their resume, or I keep saying resumes, I'm sorry, their applications, as they're turning them in, there's that greeter that I talked about earlier, the one person who met them all when they came in. That's the person who's going to collect the applications. And that person is going to keep them in order. So you know who turned in theirs first, who turned in theirs last. And what we like to do is we like to write down the time that the first person finished and the time that the last person finished. So we have kind of a range of like, how long did this take? Because sometimes you will have somebody that might just fill it out so fast, like, 5 minutes, they're done. And you want to know that. And then you might have somebody that took 20 minutes or 25 minutes to fill it out. And you want to know that too. So we put the time on the first one, we put the time on the last one. So we get a range, but everybody in between, you just keep them in a numbered fashion. So you know what order they came in. That way, if you have a resume or an application that looks really good when you look at it later, because you're not going to remember later, it's going to be a blur. It's going to go by quickly. But when you're looking at it later and you see that application and you say, wow, this just looks great, like clarity of writing, completeness, everything's there, everything's great. And then you look at the time and you go, well, this was the last person that finished, and they finished after everybody else by 20 minutes. Ooh, not so good, right? Or this person looks great, except they had a couple of missed areas. They didn't fill them out. And then you look at the time and you go, oh, well, this is they left. I'm sorry, let me use an example for this one because it's perfect. Let's say they fill out only the front page and they left the back of it completely blank. Like they just spaced out and forgot the whole back of the application. You might want to know that. So when you see that that's the person who turned it in first and they forgot the back of the page, then you have to kind of gauge that, right? You might say, well, first of all, they didn't make a great first impression, so it's a deal breaker and we're done. Or that might be a person that really was one of your top picks. And you think, oh my gosh, how did they miss the back of the page? And you might actually overlook that error just because of the fact that everything else was so good, right? You might find the whole front of the page had the best writing. It was clear, it was concise, it was great. They finished in a relatively good amount of time, obviously, because they didn't fill out the back of the page. It was faster, but you might want to let them come back and complete that because they made an error. So you see how there's no black and white on all this. It's more of a gray area because what are we doing? We're filtering down to where we get to the final diamonds in the rough. Okay, so let's keep going. And I want to jump over in a moment to the website, but let's just wrap this up because so we're going to offer those complimentary consultations. Then the team selects the choices for the initial interviews, right? Now, this is important because those choices happen right after the application meeting. Who did you like on your first impression? That's to the greeter. Who did you like as far as questions that might have been asked during the application meeting? And another CA says, oh, I really like this person. That was a great question. Or doctors, you might say, hey, here was somebody who just had great posture and a great professional demeanor. I like that person. And I noticed them as I was speaking to the audience, right? So we compare notes right at the end of it. who are your top picks? And everybody chimes in and you decide who those people were. And then you are done for that time. Okay. So then from there, I take those top picks and I further screen the applications. So if you want to see a sample of all this, you can go to the website and look up application meeting demo. And this is a video where I demonstrate the whole process and go through all the details, and you'll see an actual live application meeting demo. So that's on the website for you. You can check that out. All right, next week, we're going to further filter this. We're going to get into the initial interviews, and we'll talk about that next time. So I want to jump over to the website for a minute, because on the website, I have this video, which I just showed you, so you can check that out. And that's right here for you. So it's right here in these areas. But I want to show you on the application for employment how this works. And actually, I'm going to jump over to the website for this because I want to show you the sample. Oh, actually, I don't have the sample there. Huh. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to grab something quickly because I want to show this to you. And I want to make sure you have this because it's actually the application, but we have a sample. And the reason why the sample is important because there's a couple key characteristics that you want to be quick to recognize when you're looking at your applications and seeing how were they filled out. So bear with me for just a moment. And actually, this would be a good time to answer any questions that you have. So I do want to say hello. Emily, I was kind of picking on you earlier, but Emily, if you don't mind, go ahead and open up your line and I want to just check in with you. So are you there?
Mute.
Hello,
Hi.
welcome.
Hello there.
Remind me, which office are you in? Which practice?
I'm with Dr. Knitch and Celeste.
Great. Welcome. It's great to have you on the call.
Thank you.
How is your training going?
My training's going good. I think I've been here for like 8 months now.
Yes. That's great. It's kind of an ongoing training, right? There's always new things to learn.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, welcome to the call. And are there any questions I can answer?
Not right now. It's kind of cool to see how the interview process is very planned. Me and Celeste were talking about it, and I was like, oh, this is what was happening when I came, and there was more people here than I expected. And it's just interesting to learn how you do it.
I love how yes, you're referencing exactly what I hear in my team too, which is great. And that is, remember, you went through this when you started too. And so you're learning about it, but then you're reflecting back. And, hopefully at the time, it may have been a little stressful to go through that process. Did you feel like that?
Um, I was thrown off when I walked in and there were other people. But I really did like Dr. Knitch, and the front desk was there to greet us. And um, yeah, I didn't mind the process. I thought it went well.
That's great. And my compliments to you, because as I said earlier, that shows your tenacity and, just your drive in terms of getting a really good job. At the time it was more of just, I'm applying for a job, but your tenacity really shines through in that. So obviously you're a great fit and you're doing great. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me say hello to Dr. Tetrault. Are you there? I want to say hello to you and just check in. Dr. Mike?
Yes, good day. How are you?
Good day. Yes, I'm doing nearly perfect. It's great to have you on the call. And
Amen.
I just wanted to check in with you and see if you have any questions.
Absolutely. Continue to be surprised by the detail and how it really has an outcome. You really have an end game. And I really appreciate that because a lot of times we do kind of hurry through. I've hired tons of people over the years. I wish I knew a lot of this stuff earlier.
BJ Palmer called that slipping and checking. So no time like the present, right?
Amen.
Well, great. Any questions I can answer?
No, I'm good. I appreciate it though. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. And I did send you an email. I don't know if you got it, but I wanted to follow up with you on that email thread as well. So do you recall getting that?
Sure, sure.
Okay, great. Well, we'll follow up more, but it's great to have you. And as always, let's keep charging ahead, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So now I have the materials here. I want to just pull this up for you, and let me actually share my screen. There we go. Let's see. bear with me for just a moment because I'm going to pull this up. And there we go. Okay, so I had to actually open it from our server because on the website it wasn't showing the sample, but I'll make sure I get that material up for you. But here is the sample of the application for employment. So this is what everyone's filling out when they're in the audience. And as you can see, we've kind of filled this out in a sample format. I'll jump back over to the website just quickly to show you that it is on the website. So if you want to just print this out for your office, you can. You can just go to the website, download it, print it out. It's 2 sides, as I said. Don't make the mistake I have in the past where I didn't specifically say fill out the back of it, and some of the applicants didn't fill out the back. So I made that error 20 years ago, and I've never slipped again because of how important it is that the information that's on the back. So it's 2 sides. And as I said, we'll have that up for you on the website. Here we go. So this is the sample. And I want to just point out some of the specifics here because these are the things that you want to watch for. How do I make it bigger? I know it's on here somewhere. Oh, here we go. So let's go through this. This is the top section, pretty straightforward, home phone number, address, all that stuff. How'd you learn about us? This is a key point. Are you available to work on the weekends or evenings? That might be important for your office. If it is, then obviously that's something you want to pay attention to. And then down here, present or past immediate employer. We have a couple of those sections. And one of the things that's going to come up as we go through this is, may we contact as a reference? This is a big one, folks, because when we do our reference checks, we're going to pull out the strengths and shortcomings of each of our applicants. So don't gloss over that. Very important. If there's a no checked here, obviously that means that their current employer is not aware that this person is looking for another job. Okay, I can understand. But as far as past employment, I want to make sure I can contact them. And if there's a no there, that's a big red flag. Right? How did you leave that job then? If I can't contact them as a reference, why did you leave? Were you fired? Were you let go? Were you non-productive? What was the deal? So big point right here. And I know, many of you have been coming to DC trainings for years now. Dr. Kanich, you being one of them. So welcome, Dr. John. But this is something that we haven't really showcased in the past. But times have changed, right? I mean, now it used to be able to just call people that's an applicant and talk to them on the phone. Now nobody ever answers their phone anymore. So these connections that you're going to be making with past employers and references become critically important when we don't have quite the same connection techniques that we used to have in years past when we use different technology. Now we have different technology. So this past reference is a big one now, really big. And we'll get more into that as we go through the interview process. So that's something that I look at. Now, when we get to the back of the page, I want to emphasize a couple things here. The first is, do they have past experience with chiropractic care? Yes or no? Not a deal breaker, but I want to emphasize something. Let's say you see that as a plus. If somebody says, yeah, I've been to a chiropractor. I used to work for a chiropractor. You might think, oh my gosh, that's so great. I don't have to train them on all that stuff. But I'll tell you something. It's a bigger job for someone to unlearn bad habits than it is for somebody to learn good habits. I'll say that again. It's a bigger job for somebody to unlearn bad habits than it is for someone to learn good habits, right? Sigmund Freud had a great quote. He said, it's harder to get people to change a belief that they have than it is to teach them something and for them to adopt a new belief. Another way of saying the same thing, but that was a quote by Sigmund Freud. But anyways, so I just point that out because if somebody used to run a chiropractic office and they used to do things in a certain way, it may not always be the best fit for you in your office. And I can use my office as an example because I'm what many would call a high volume chiropractor. I like to adjust a lot of people. So if somebody worked in an office in the past where they saw 10 patients a day and that was a good flow for them, they come into my office and they're blowing way over 100 patients a day. That might not be the best person for my office, right? And vice versa. Could be different than the other way too. So we just want to make sure that we're aware of that before or factor it into our consideration process as we're looking at these applications. The next one is the 6 best qualities. I like these. There's many ways that people will write these, but obviously organized is a good one. Punctual is also a good one. A quick learner, very good, right? So those are just some qualities that I put in there so you can have a reference point. Those are some of the things that we look for. The next one is, do you feel you're average? Now, this one, again, is not a deal breaker, but what you'll see on many of the applications is that someone will write in, yes. Do you feel you're average? Yes. Are we looking for average? No. So again, this is something to factor in. I like to see no as an answer to this question. How would you describe yourself? Honest, hardworking, and positive. Great. There's lots of ways that someone can describe themselves, and that's fine. Right here, what would be your best contributions to our office? Now, this is going to come up later, but I'll point it out now because whatever they put here, this is a good answer. I'm a team player. Whatever they put, what's your follow-up question going to be to that? I'll tell you mine. My follow-up question is, whatever your contribution is to this office that you put down, you can put down anything you want. What I want to know is, how do I measure it? Right? I'm a team player. Great. How do I measure it? Well, I can make sure that everybody on the team is productive. Great. How would you measure that? Well, I don't know, doctor. What do you measure in your office? Well, I measure new patients. Great. Then as far as being a team player, I can make sure that everyone on the team is working to bring in more new patients. Okay, perfect. So how would you measure that? Becomes a question that's an add-on to the question, what would be your best contributions to our office? How do you measure it? Okay. Now, again, these aren't deal breakers, but you're starting to get really a good connection or a strong impression of this person's individual talents as they would relate to contributing to your team, right? If you're a Super Bowl team or a football team and you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're not going to hire average players because the average teams don't get to the Super Bowl. Well, doesn't mean that somebody that came in average can't learn to become way above average, or you hire an ordinary player, they can't become extraordinary. That's okay. But we just want to know where we're starting. Okay. Then what are your expectations of this position? They might put, there's a lot of answers that come up here, but it's just nice to see that. What are your expectations? You know, what do you want here? Well, I want a dependable long-term career position. Okay, great. Another expectation might be, I need a job for the next year until I go back to college. Oh, well, you're going to go back to college. Well, that's not long-term. That might be a red flag, right? Are you fluent in any other language? That might be an important factor. For me, it is. I need to make sure that this person can speak Spanish because we take care of a lot of monolingual Spanish patients. And list any additional qualifications that you have. In this case, maybe this person has a CMA certificate. Maybe they have an X-ray technician license. Those are great things to know. Medical assistant's a big one. That's a big plus. So desired salary. What is it that they're looking for? Now, if somebody puts negotiable here, that's fine. But that's something that I'm obviously going to dive into, and I'll want to know more about that when they come back for their initial interview, if they're selected for that. But I generally want to have a range there, and that's an important area to know. Next up, references. Now, when we get into references, I want to emphasize this. You're going to call all the references. Why? Here's what you want to know. There's three things, and we've touched on this and we're going to touch on it again, but this is something that I've found as technology has changed in the last 27 years that I've been in practice. This is a big one that adds to longevity and A players that are going to join your team. So what are we going to ask these references? We want to know, what are this person's strengths? What are this person's shortcomings? And how would you rate them overall as a team player? Okay. What are their strengths? What are their shortcomings? How do you rate them? Those are the three questions that we want to know when we're contacting references, especially references that have to do with employment. I just did one recently where she put three references down and they were all coworkers from her last job. Well, her last job she worked at was almost 10 years. So all her references were coworkers. That was great. But I found out quickly, one of the coworkers wasn't real excited about some of the shortcomings that this individual had as it related to their work. So, and again, it's maybe not a deal breaker, but it was a nice thing to know and to see, okay, there's some things I maybe want to factor in terms of my training process if this person is the one we end up hiring. Okay, so that's the references. And that is, again, I'm just going to close this because that is on the website. And I'll make sure that the sample is added for you, so you'll have that sample. But there's the application for employment. There's also the videos. Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm not sharing my screen again. I'm bouncing around. Let me go back. There we go. Okay. So here's the videos. You can watch those, and then the application for employment, and I'll add the sample. Anyway, so now that you've seen that, I want to just chime back in with and give you a chance to ask any questions. We're right up against the hour, so all right. So I don't see any other hands up. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. We're right against the hour, but thank you to everybody for joining. We're going to keep marching along through this process. Stay with us through it, because at the end of this, the talent that you will have on your team is just top shelf. I mean, it's amazing when you have an A team all pulling in the same direction. I mentioned the analogy earlier of going to the Super Bowl. We can't get to the Super Bowl without an playing team, an A team. So just keep going step by step. Please let me know if you have any questions at any time. Just email them, dctrainings@gmail.com, or jump on the webinars, type it into the chat. However you want to get it to me, I'm available. I want to make sure you have everything you need to produce an A team, and it's always a pleasure. So thank you for being part of DC Trainings, and I'll talk to you soon.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.